in the suffocating darkness of a World War I trench. While exhausted soldiers slept unaware of the death creeping toward them, a small dog with a stubby tail suddenly bolted upright. His ears flattened, his body trembled, and then he did something that would save dozens of lives. He started running through the trench, biting sleeping soldiers, barking frantically, pulling at their uniforms with a desperation no one could understand. The men cursed at him, shoved him away, tried to silence the annoying but disturbing their precious few hours of rest. But the dog wouldn't stop.
Good to see you.
Seconds later, the first whiffs of
up.
mustard gas rolled silently over the trench walls. Invisible death that would melt lungs and blind eyes. Because of that stubborn little dog, every single man in that section had time to reach their gas masks. This wasn't the first time this dog had saved lives, and it wouldn't be the last. But here's what makes this story truly extraordinary. This hero wasn't a trained military dog. He wasn't bred for war. He wasn't even supposed to be there. He was a homeless stray, found wandering the streets of Connecticut, with no special pedigree, no training, and absolutely no reason to become what he became. His name was Stubby, and by the time the war ended, this unwanted street dog will hold a rank higher than his own handler, meet 3 presidents, and become the most decorated war dog in American history. This is his story. Before the trenches, before the medals, before the legend, there was just a dog, alone. The streets of New Haven, Connecticut in 1917 were no place for a stray, especially not a stocky, short-tailed bull terrier mix with a pushed-in face that made him look perpetually confused. He had no name, no home, no one to care whether he lived or died. He survived on scraps from garbage cans, dodged rocks thrown by cruel children, and slept wherever he could find shelter from the rain. Each day was a battle for survival. Each night was spent alone. But something burned in this little dog's chest. A loyalty waiting to be given. A courage waiting to be tested. A heart too big for his compact, muscular body. He didn't know it yet, but his entire life of hardship was preparing him for something extraordinary. He just needed someone to believe in him. And that someone was about to arrive. It was July 1917. The United States had just entered the Great War, and young men across the nation were answering the call to serve. At Yale University, the 102nd Infantry Regiment had established a training camp on the athletic fields. Hundreds of soldiers drilled day after day, preparing for a war most couldn't imagine. One morning, a small brindled dog wandered onto those fields. He sat at the edge, watching the soldiers march and train with something like understanding in his dark eyes. The men tried to shoo him away. He kept coming back, day after day, week after week, always watching, always waiting. It was as if he knew something they didn't, as if he knew he was meant to be there, as if destiny itself had placed him at that exact moment, in that exact place, waiting for the one man who would change everything. Private J. Robert Conroy was 25 years old when he first noticed a little dog who refused to leave. Something about those stubborn eyes called to him. Here was another scrappy fighter, another underdog refusing to give up. Conroy saw himself in that dog. One afternoon, instead of chasing him away, Conroy knelt down and extended his hand. The dog approached cautiously, sniffed once, twice, and then licked his fingers. In that single moment, 2 lost souls found each other. Conroy named him Stubby for his short, stubby tail. He smuggled him into the barracks, hiding him under his coat, feeding him from his own rations. The other soldiers fell in love with the charming little dog who seemed to understand everything they said. But then came the orders. The 102nd Infantry was shipping out to France. No dogs allowed. Conroy faced an impossible choice. Leave Stubby behind, abandon him to the streets he'd rescued him from, or risk court-martial by smuggling an unauthorized dog onto a military transport ship. For Conroy, there was no choice at all. He had Stubby inside his overcoat as he boarded the SS Minnesota. For the entire Atlantic crossing, he kept his secret, sharing his bunk and his food with his 4-legged friend. When they finally landed in France, there was no turning back. For either of them, the stray from Connecticut had become a soldier, and the real test was about to begin. When Stubby was finally discovered in France, Conroy's heart stopped. This was it. Court-martial, disgrace, and Stubby would be sent away. Or worse, the commanding officer stood before them, face stern and unreadable. Soldiers gathered around, waiting for the punishment to fall. But then Stubby did something unexpected. He sat up on his hind legs and lifted his right paw to his eyebrow in a perfect military salute. Conroy had spent weeks teaching him this trick, never imagining it might save them both. The commanding officer stared. The soldiers held their breath. And then laughter. The officer's stern face cracked into a smile. The men cheered. In that moment, Stubby went from stowaway to mascot, but he would prove to be so much more. As the 102nd moved into the trenches along the Western Front, Stubby transformed. The playful camp dog became something else entirely, a soldier in his own right. He learned to recognize the sound of incoming artillery before the men could hear it. His ears would perk, his body would tense, and the soldiers knew. Take cover. Now, he could smell gas attacks minutes before they reached lethal concentrations, giving the men precious time to mask up. He would venture into no man's land after battles, searching for wounded Americans, barking to guide medics to soldiers who might otherwise have died alone in shell craters. The men stopped seeing him as a mascot. They started seeing him as a comrade. This wasn't just a dog playing at war. This was a natural-born soldier who had finally found his purpose. The trenches broke men in ways that went beyond physical wounds. Week after week in the mud, the constant thunder of artillery, the screams of the dying, the smell of death that never faded. Soldiers watched friends die in their arms, only to face the same horrors again the next day. Men who had arrived singing patriotic songs became hollow shells, staring at nothing, unable to speak or sleep or feel anything at all. Shell shock, they called it, a polite name for having your soul shattered. Stubby witnessed all of it. He was gassed at Psychopre, the chemicals burning his eyes and lungs until medics feared he wouldn't survive. For weeks he recovered in a field hospital, struggling to breathe, his body ravaged by the same poisons that killed thousands of men. But he came back. He returned to the trenches more determined than ever, as if the gas had only strengthened his resolve, as if he understood that his men needed him more than ever. And they did, because Stubby provided something no military strategy could: comfort. When soldiers shook with shell shock, unable to calm their trembling hands, Stubby would press his warm body against them and simply stay. No judgment, no expectations, just presence. When men received letters telling them their mothers had died, their wives had left, their children were sick, Stubby would rest his head on their laps and let them cry into his fur. When the nightmares came, when soldiers woke screaming from dreams of blood and death, Stubby was there, a living reminder that gentleness still existed in this hell. The men began to fight not just for their country, but for each other, and for the little dog who had taught them that love could survive even in the darkest trenches. But war doesn't reward love. War tests it. In the Meuse-Argonne offensive, the bloodiest battle in American history, Stubby faced his greatest challenge yet. The fighting was relentless. Men fell by the hundreds. The trenches became rivers of blood and mud. One night, as Stubby patrolled the lines, he encountered something unexpected. A German soldier creeping through the darkness, mapping American positions. A spy. The German saw the dog and froze, reached for his weapon, but Stubby was faster. He launched himself at the spy, teeth sinking into the man's legs, bringing him crashing to the ground. The German fought back, kicking and punching, but Stubby held on with the same stubborn determination he'd shown all his life. His barking brought American soldiers running. The spy was captured. His maps revealed a planned German assault that would have killed hundreds of Americans. For this act of heroism, Stubby was promoted to sergeant through the ranks, becoming the first dog in United States military history to be given a rank. Private Conroy now had to salute his own dog. By 1918, Stubby had become a legend along the Western Front. But legends attract attention, not all of it welcome. Military brass began questioning the resources being wasted on a dog. Why was an animal receiving medical treatment that could go to soldiers? Why was food being diverted to feed a mascot? In a war of statistics and logistics, a dog was an inefficiency that some commanders wanted eliminated. Orders came down to remove all mascots from frontline units. Dogs, cats, birds, they were distractions, they said. Drains on morale. But the men of the 102nd Infantry saw it differently. Stubby wasn't distraction. He was the reason some of them were still alive. He was the reason others hadn't put rifles in their mouths during the darkest nights. Private Conroy faced an impossible situation. Disobey orders and face court-martial? Or give up the dog who had saved his life and the lives of his brothers? The soldiers held a secret meeting. Every man in the unit signed a petition, risking their own standing to protect one small dog. Officers who should have enforced the order suddenly became blind to Stubby's presence. Paperwork went missing. Orders were lost in transit. The entire unit conspired to protect him. Meanwhile, the war itself was reaching its brutal crescendo. The Germans launched their spring offensive, desperate to end the war before American reinforcements could turn the tide. The fighting was more vicious than ever. Entire units were wiped out in hours. The 102nd was pushed to its breaking point. During one assault, shrapnel tore through the trench, wounding Conroy in the arm and legs. Blood soaked his uniform as he lay helpless in the mud. Stubby found him. The little dog stood over his fallen master, barking and barking, refusing to leave even as artillery shells exploded around them. Medics followed the sound of his barking through the chaos and found Conroy just in time. Once again, Stubby had saved him, but the close call changed something in Conroy. For the first time, he considered sending Stubby away, not for his own sake, but for the dog's. "You've done enough," he whispered to Stubby one night, stroking his brindle fur. "You don't have to keep risking your life for us." Stubby just pressed closer against him, as if to say, "Neither do you." The pressure intensified from all sides. Higher command wanted the dog gone. The war wanted both of them dead. Even well-meaning friends suggested it was time to send Stubby somewhere safe. But through it all, neither Conroy nor Stubby wavered. They had found each other on those training fields at Yale when both of them were lost and alone. They had crossed an ocean together. They had survived gas attacks and artillery and disease and everything else this war had thrown at them. Whatever came next, they would face it together, even if together meant dying in the same trench. November 11th, 1918. The guns fell silent. After 4 years of unprecedented slaughter, after 17 million dead, after the world had torn itself apart, the war was finally over. Sergeant Stubby had participated in 17 battles. He had survived everything the Western Front could throw at him. He had done more than any dog in history to serve his country. But now came a question no one had considered. What happens next? Military regulations were clear. Animals were not permitted on transport ships returning to America. Stubby was expected to be left behind in France, given to a local family, or the unspoken option, euthanized. For Conroy, this was unthinkable. He had disobeyed orders once to bring Stubby to war. Now, he would do it again to bring him home. With help from sympathetic officers and soldiers who owed their lives to the little sergeant, Conroy smuggled Stubby aboard a transport ship once more. Hidden in coal bins, passed between friendly hands during inspections, Stubby made the return journey just as he had made the first, as a stowaway. When the ship finally docked in America, Stubby walked down the gangplank beside Conroy, head held high. A stray dog who had been thrown away by society across an ocean survived the bloodiest war in human history and returned as a decorated hero. But Conroy faced one final choice. Stubby had become famous. Newspapers wanted his story. Politicians wanted to be photographed with him. He could become a celebrity, paraded around the country, monetized and commercialized. Or he could simply be a dog again, loved, safe, home. Conroy chose both. He would share Stubby's story with the world, but on his terms. Stubby would be celebrated, but never exploited. He would be a symbol, but always, first and foremost, he would be loved. Some choices, once made, define everything that follows. America embraced Sergeant Stubby with open arms. He marched in homecoming parades, his chest decorated with medals from France, Belgium, and the United States. Children lined the streets to see him. Veterans wept at the sight of the little dog who had shared their suffering. He met 3 presidents: Woodrow Wilson, Warren G. Harding, and Calvin Coolidge. Each one knelt to shake his paw. He was made a lifetime member of the American Legion and the Red Cross. He received a special gold medal from the Humane Society. He was awarded honorary membership in the YMCA, entitled to 3 bones a day and a place to sleep for the rest of his life. Georgetown University, where Conroy enrolled after the war, made Stubby their official mascot. At every football game, Stubby would take the field at halftime, pushing a football across the grass while crowds of thousands cheered. The stray who had been worthless to the world had become priceless, but the medals and the fame never changed who Stubby really was. At home with Conroy, he was still just a dog. He still begged for scraps. He still curled up on the bed at night, pressing his warm body against the man who had saved him from the streets. He still trembled during thunderstorms, the sound too much like artillery. He still woke, sometimes from dreams that made him whimper and shake. The war had marked them both, but they had each other. And after everything they had survived, that was enough. As the years passed, Stubby grew old. His muzzle turned gray. His steps grew slower. But his eyes still lit up whenever Conroy walked through the door. That stubby tail still wagged with undiminished joy. Some heroes fight their wars and are forgotten. Stubby would never be forgotten. On March 16, 1926, Sergeant Stubby died peacefully in Conroy's arms. He was approximately 10 years old. He had outlived the war by 8 years, spending his final chapter surrounded by love and comfort. Things he had never known as a stray on the streets of New Haven. Conroy was devastated. He had Stubby preserved by a taxidermist and donated to the Smithsonian Institution, where Stubby remains to this day, still wearing his decorated uniform, still watching over the nation he served. His obituary ran in newspapers across America. The New York Times gave him half a page. Tributes poured in from veterans who remembered the little dog who had saved their lives. But Stubby's legacy extended far beyond his own lifetime. He paved the way for military working dog programs that would save countless lives in future conflicts. He proved that courage has nothing to do with pedigree or size or breeding, that heroes come from the most unexpected places. He showed the world that the bond between humans and dogs can transcend anything, even the horrors of war. And he reminded us all of a simple truth. Sometimes the greatest soldiers are the ones who didn't choose to fight, but who, when the moment came, refused to look away. What made Stubby a hero? It wasn't his breed. Bull terriers weren't considered special. It wasn't his training. He had none. It wasn't his pedigree. He was a stray, a throwaway, a dog no one wanted. What made Stubby extraordinary was simply this. He loved completely, and he refused to give up. When he found his person, he never abandoned him. When danger came, he never ran away. When comfort was needed, he never held back. He didn't fight because he understood politics or patriotism or the complex causes of the Great War. He fought because the men around him, his pack, his family, were in danger, and he would have died 1,000 times to protect them. In a world that measures worth by pedigree and position, Stubby's story is a reminder that true value lies elsewhere, in loyalty, in courage, in love that asks nothing in return. A century later, his example still challenges us. Could we love that completely? Could we be that brave? Could we give ourselves that fully to something greater than ourselves? Sergeant Stubby was just a dog, but sometimes just a dog is everything we need to remember what it means to be human. If this story moved you, consider subscribing to see more forgotten heroes brought back to life. History is full of extraordinary stories waiting to be told, and every subscription helps us find and share the next one. Thank you for watching. Before you go, I want to personally thank you for spending these minutes with Sergeant Stubby's incredible story. This channel exists because I believe history's greatest lessons are hidden in stories the world has forgotten. Stories of ordinary beings, human and animal alike, who found extraordinary courage when it mattered most. If you felt something during this video, that connection is exactly why I create this content. By subscribing and hitting that notification bell, you're not just supporting a channel, you're voting for these stories to be told. You're helping preserve the memory of heroes like Stubby, who deserve to be remembered. New videos drop every week, each one exploring another forgotten chapter of history that will inspire, challenge, and move you. Join our community of history lovers who believe the past still has the power to shape who we become. Hit subscribe. turn on notifications, and I'll see you in the next story. Because history isn't just about what happened. It's about what it teaches us about who we can be.